Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. Today we're gonna have a bit of a special video because this was recorded a while ago, actually at the end of January, and it's a pretty special flight because first of all it was a training flight that we did right after I did my theoretical exam. So like I finished my theoretical exam and then we flew. So I was still a little bit stressed from the theoretical exam, let's face it. And then again, it was also a morning flight. Normally, we fly mostly in the evening because it's cooler, it's less turbulent, obviously, as the atmosphere cools down. But this was a morning flight. We flew around 11 a.m. We finished our flight right before lunch. It was in January, but you gotta remember that I'm in Thailand, and in this country it's always hot. It's always hot year-round, basically. So even in January, the temperature was actually above 30 degrees Celsius at that time. So it was already pretty hot, and there were a lot of convection turbulence, which didn't make it particularly easy. So it's not actually a very interesting flight, to be honest. It was just a regular. It was actually a regular training flight in which we practiced maneuvering the plane, air work, basically flying the plane in turbulent air, because every pilot has to know how to fly the plane in turbulent air. You can't be a pilot and just be able to fly in calm air, because even though it feels better, it's important to know how to fly in any weather as much as possible. So in this flight we practiced controlling the plane in turbulent air while doing airfield patterns, and we also got to enjoy the view, as this was a midday flight. We actually got to see a much clearer picture of what the Thai countryside looks like. When we fly in the evening, there's often less light, we don't see as much, but during this flight it was a sunny day, everything was super clear, the visibility was pretty good. It was actually really nice, except for the turbulence that was actually pretty strong, but that was the whole point. So now, without further ado, I'm gonna go to the main topic of this video that I'm gonna discuss with you guys, which is why I chose to do my pilot's license in Thailand, why I chose to do an ultralight pilot's license and not a PPL, and all those questions, obviously. So I'm gonna answer those, and we're gonna watch the flight in the background at the same time. So why did I choose to do my pilot's license in Thailand? Well, you know, there's no actual reason why I would choose Thailand over any other country for the pilot's license. It's simply just that I've been living in Thailand for about 8 years. I moved there when I was 18, just after I got out of high school. I went to university in Bangkok. I attended an international program that was taught in English, obviously, because I didn't speak any Thai back then, even though I do now. I'm not exactly super fluent, but I can have a very decent conversation, so there's that. So I've been living here for a long time, and I'm not planning on going back to France anytime soon. I'm not planning to leave the country anytime soon. I'm working here, I have a work permit. I have all my life here so far, so I'm planning to stay here a little bit longer. And I always wanted to be a pilot since I was a kid. I wanted to be a professional pilot, but soon I realized that this was never going to happen because training costs are very, very expensive, like prohibitively expensive. And also, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, it takes a very long time, and you know, like, employment prospects are actually not that good nowadays. I mean, it depends on when you're watching this, but as we just got out of the COVID pandemic, you know, a lot of pilots got laid off during the pandemic, and that kind of sucks. I realized, you know, actually, if if I had been doing my pilot training, like professional pilot training before the pandemic, I would probably have graduated from it just before the pandemic, and then the pandemic would have struck and I would have had no job. And what would I have done with like 100k in debt and no job to pay off the debt? That would have been problematic, and I feel really bad for all the young pilots who graduated from their CPLs and all their ratings and ready to look for a professional pilot job, and then the pandemic arrived, the pandemic struck, no more jobs, no more flying, aircraft grounded. Quite frankly, that must have been pretty rough. But nonetheless, I still wish I had been able to become a professional pilot, but you know, it's life. I have a different job now, and I like my job, so I'm fine just being a sport pilot, like my dad. So that's why I decided to get a sport pilot license. Basically, what I call a sport pilot license is anything like a PPL or a UPL in this case, anything that's not a professional license, because I am not going to be a professional pilot, I'm going to be a sport pilot, which means someone who flies for fun. So now we come to the question, why UPL instead of PPL? Well, you see, first and foremost, the UPL is more affordable than the PPL, and that's the case in every country that has a UPL system, which is not the case in the United States. So if I have people watching from the United States, in the US, aircrafts that are classified as ultralights don't actually require any license, but their specifications are very, very limited compared to ultralights in other countries, and aircrafts that would probably classify as ultralights in other countries would require a regular PPL in the United States. I'm talking about all experimental aircrafts like the Kit Fox, for example, that seems to be very popular among American YouTubers. There's a lot of videos from American YouTubers featuring the Kit Fox, an experimental aircraft that would still require a private pilot's license to legally fly it in the United States, or at least a sport pilot's license, because now there seems to be a dual system in the United States as well as in many European countries, with basically a fully fledged private pilot's license, the PPL, and a restricted sport pilot's license, or LAPL as it's called in some European countries as far as I'm aware. But in Thailand, that's not a thing. The LAPL, or Sport Pilot's License, isn't recognized yet. So far, it's PPL or nothing when it comes to light aircrafts. And if it's an ultralight, it's UPL, basically. And the cost of the PPL is actually very expensive in this country. You would expect that it would be lower because of the lower standards of living in Thailand. People have considerably less money on average than in the West, but yet pilot training is just as expensive as in the West, if not more expensive, because a PPL in Thailand costs anywhere between $12,000 to $20,000. Yeah, I'm talking about a PPL, not a CPL, but just a private pilot's license. It basically starts at $12,000 up to $20,000 to learn on a Cessna 172 Skyhawk. Wow, that seems way over the top for me. That's why I decided against the PPL, because actually in most of Europe and in the United States you can get the same license for much less than that. And then the UPL in Thailand, the Ultralight Pilot's License, which is actually called the private pilot's license for ultralight aircrafts, carries the same benefits as a regular PPL, but it's limited to ultralight aircrafts, obviously. And like most ultralight pilot's license systems, you can't use it outside of the country that the license was acquired in, because it's not regulated by the ICAO. And it's a lot cheaper. In Thailand, the UPL basically costs between $3,500 and $4,000 complete, which is a lot more affordable than the 12 to 20k that the PPL would require here. That's why I decided in favor of the UPL. After all, what's the difference between an ultralight aircraft and a regular light aircraft? Yes, the ultralight aircraft is not certified and it has only 2 seats. The light aircraft is certified and it has up to, well, I mean, it has usually 4 seats, up to, well, 6 or 8 or whatever. Usually 4 seats. Some of them actually have only 2 seats, like the CH-701, which is a certified aircraft, but in the end it's not that much different from the aircraft that I fly, that I'm flying in this video, except for a lack of instruments found in certified aircrafts. We don't have an artificial horizon, we cannot fly IFR, we cannot fly at night, but I don't want to fly IFR, I don't want to fly at night, so that's not really a concern. In the end, the major drawback is basically, as I said a minute ago, that I can't use my license outside of Thailand, because like all ultralight pilot's license systems, your license is limited to the country that it was acquired in. If I get a French ultralight pilot's license, I can only use it to fly French registered aircraft within France, and I guess you can travel to other countries that also recognize the ultralight pilot's license system, but there's a lot of restrictions that apply, and you cannot convert your local license to a foreign license. If I get my ultralight pilot's license in France, I cannot convert it to a Thai UPL and vice versa. Unlike a regular PPL, if I get a French PPL, I can convert it in Thailand to be allowed to fly Thai registered light aircrafts. But there's also restrictions that apply, and vice versa. The reverse is also true, as far as I'm aware. But as far as the UPL is concerned, if I want to fly French registered ultralight aircrafts in France, I have to go through the whole training process again, which would actually be a little bit frustrating, I guess. Again, it depends on what kind of experience you have as a pilot. Obviously, if you've been flying for many years in this country and you have like 500 hours of flight time, and then you go to another country and they tell you have to go through the whole training process again like you're a beginner, that's probably gonna suck. But if you're a beginner and you just have maybe 40 hours in your logbook and you start the whole training process again, it might be less frustrating. I don't know, I haven't done it. I still have to finish my training here anyway. So, and since I said at the beginning of the video that I'm not planning to go anywhere anytime soon, I think it's fine for me to get an ultralight pilot's license in Thailand, even knowing that I won't be able to convert it to anything outside of Thailand. I still think that it's gonna be worth it in the end, because it's much cheaper than the Thai PPL, and as I said, the difference between an ultralight aircraft and a light aircraft is actually not that much, except for the lack of IFR instrumentation, night flight abilities, which I'm not interested in, and the fact that you can only have, well, basically 2 seats, because otherwise you're going to be above the maximum allowed weight of 475 kilos, and that's about it. But that's fine for me. I don't have a huge family, so I don't need to transport like the wife and the kids in an aircraft, so I don't need a big aircraft. I would be fine just owning an ultralight one day, a 2-seater. That would be fine for me. So as far as pilot training is concerned in Thailand, as a foreigner, you have to get a criminal background check before you can apply for the SPL, the Student Pilot's License. Then when your criminal background check is completed, you can apply for the SPL, and then you can start your training, and you can start logging in hours in your logbook. and you're gonna have to take the theoretical exam, which is gonna be divided into 5 different parts. And after that, you can also continue your flight training, at the end of which you're gonna have to do at least 3 solo hours. There's 15 hours of duo, after which you're gonna have at least 3 hours of solo time. That's the minimum requirements, but it doesn't mean that after 15 hours of dual instruction you're gonna get to fly solo right away. It's the minimal requirements, but it might be more depending on your specific needs. If you're a very proficient pilot from the get-go, or if you need more training, obviously. And then as far as the solo is concerned, you need to do at least 3 hours of solo flight. There needs to be some cross-country flying as well, and after that you're gonna have a check ride. But as it turns out, in Thailand there's not a lot of ultralight pilots, so the CAAT, the Civil Aviation Authority of Thailand, doesn't have any ultralight examinators, so they usually use examinators from other license types to do the ultralight examination process. Like, for example, I know there's a CPL examiner that does like the ultralight examinations, and I think that's fine, because in a country like France, where there's hundreds of ultralight pilots that get their check ride every year, they need ultralight examinators. But in Thailand, where there might be like 5 or 6 ultralight check rides per year, you're not gonna pay someone to be an ultralight examinator just for 5 or 6 pilots a year who need their check rides. So that's why here they have an agreement to use an examinator from another license type to do the ultralight check rides, basically. The ultralight check ride is basically going to be conducted with your instructor on board the plane, and the examiner is going to be on the ground and he's going to watch, and then your instructor is going to give him a report after the flight, and together they decide if you are good enough to become a licensed pilot, if you're safe for yourself and for others. And then if you pass the examination and you also have your medical in order, you're ready to get your license and to fly on your own. Now obviously you also need a medical certificate, as I just mentioned. In Thailand, ultralight pilots need a class 4 certificate. That's the least demanding medical certificate for aviation. Proper private pilots need a more demanding certificate, and then professional pilots need an even more demanding certificate. But because ultralight aircrafts are the lightest form of aviation that needs a license, that requires a license within Thailand, it also requires the lightest form of medical certificate to be allowed to fly. And that's about it. So once you have everything in your possession, your license and your medical, you're allowed to fly. And then you can also you can rent an aircraft from a flying association or a club, or you can buy your own aircraft, and we'll see what happens in the future. And now it's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I hope you enjoy the turbulence that we saw on screen quite a few times, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.